Namaste, Yogi Astrologers, and welcome to Karma Yoga Center's Astrological Alchemical Report. This is for the new moon that is happening on Friday, April 5th. And this new moon is the first new moon of the season of spring. And so it's a big start of a new energy for us. The spring equinox happened back on March 20th this year, just 2 weeks prior to this, or a little over 2 weeks. And the equinox happens when the sun goes into the sign of Aries. It's also throughout the planet when the sun is directly over the equator and we have equal day and night everywhere on planet Earth. Now in the northern hemisphere, where we are in Colorado, it's where the spring season kicks off. In the southern hemisphere, it's where autumn starts. This new moon, as I said, is also in the sign of Aries, and so when we have a new moon, the sun and the moon are in the same place in the sky, and they're sharing the same zodiacal sign of Aries, or the same constellation of Aries as the energy that they're exploring. I'm going to come back to this Aries new moon and this Sun Aries energy in a moment, but I want to talk about one of the astrological aspects that's actually completed itself, but we're still in the shadow of, that is a great influence for these next 2 weeks, and that has to do with the planet Mercury. Mercury was retrograde from March 5th until March 28th. On March 28th, the planet stopped its apparent backwards motion, and now it's appearing to go forward again. I explained in the previous report about the mechanics of Mercury retrograde, so I won't go back over that, but we will talk about what we know as the shadow, or as the parts or the pathway in the sky that Mercury is going back over again. One way to think about this is if you are driving in your car down the highway, and you pass mile marker 16 and you drive all the way up to mile marker 29, and then you're like, oh shoot, I forgot something. You always have to hit your forehead when you say that. And then you have to turn around all the way back to mile marker 16, and then when you pick up whatever you forgot, you turn around again and you have to go from 16 back to 29 again. This is what happens when Mercury goes retrograde. I picked those numbers 16 and 29 because Mercury's retrograde happens in the sign of Pisces this year, or at least this part of the year, and it was from 16 degrees Pisces to 29 degrees Pisces. On March 28th, Mercury had gone all the way back to 16 degrees, and now it's going forward again, and it's going to be going through what we call the shadow, that swath of sky in Pisces from the 16 degrees to the 29 degrees of Pisces. Along this journey, as Mercury's going forward, back, and then forward again, it's going to pass and join Neptune, and then it ends its retrograde, then it goes forward and hits Neptune again, and that actually happens April 2nd, just after this report comes out. But this Neptunian / Piscean energy that Mercury keeps going back and forth through can have a couple effects on us in our spiritual, emotional, and psychological way, both as individuals and society. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. If we have the zodiac as a circle, it's at the very end of the circle, and the beginning of the circle is Aries. Now, as you may note on a circle, there really is no beginning or end. But at least on the zodiac, the alpha and the omega signs, Pisces and Aries are right next to each other. Pisces has to do with the final merge and return back to the infinite. Things that are beyond time, beyond space, beyond words and descriptions, because we're describing the eternal, the great mystery, that which all things have come from and all things will return, or at least in the philosophy of this astrology. And it also connects to the energy of dreams, what we dream in dream time, but also what we may imagine Think of the John Lennon song, Imagine. Imagine a world where there's no religion, no politics, no war, no heaven, no hell below us. And what would that do as people? My interpretation of that John Lennon song is it's like heaven is here on earth, or at least it could be, if we imagine and choose to go that way. The only thing standing between us and that realization, which is a big thing, is the egos that we carry with us. The egos that have free will choice to decide this or that. And the ability to choose this or that puts us into everything is a duality. It's either hot or cold, or left or right, or up or down, or day or night, or good or bad, or too soon, too late, too much, too little. And within that duality, we're both describing the infinite again, but to describe it with free will choice, we either have to choose this one or that one. And it makes it challenging. And Mercury is the planet of energy that connects to how we think. What we put out there with our words. What we put out there with our hands and the actions that we take. Mercury also rules money and how we spend it. And it also can connect to the movement of ideas and technology and transportation and vehicles and the internet. And so this is all coming into Pisces land, which is dreamy, imaginative, it's spiritual. It's beyond the physical world of money and desire and lust and greed and all these other things, but it can give us a time of confusion, but also a time of vision. And both of those can simultaneously be happening during this Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And particularly now that we're in the shadow, we have left that backwards, inward-looking time of Mercury, where Mercury turns us in on ourselves to reflect and see how we're putting out all those elements of Mercury into the world. And we take stock and say, are we on the right course? Are we using our words properly? Are our thoughts in alignment with greater frequencies of spirit? Are we in alignment with the actions that we're taking in the world, including how we communicate, how we travel, how we spend our money, how we're using technology? And as we come back through the shadow, it's one more chance to go through these energies that we've been exploring since early March and even back into February when the pre-shadow started back on February 19th. And so Mercury retrograde is not just a 3-week thing. The actual backward movement is 3 weeks, but the pre and post shadow tack on almost another 4 to 6 weeks of time onto that retrograde. And so it's pretty significant. And so as we come with this Neptunian energy, because Mercury is going to be passing back and forth over Neptune during the retrograde shadow period, Neptune will illuminate where things may not be in alignment with these greater spiritual principles of oneness, of one world, of unity and diversity, of dreaming of having a planet where the sacred is brought back into this planet and brought back into the lives of people. And one of the principles of confusion when the planet of as I get confused right now what I'm saying, one of the things that Pisces and Neptune can do is confuse the issues of Mercury when it's trying to think and be logical and be like, this is the way to do it. And confusion slows us down. It makes us take a moment and reconsider. It sits us in the energy. And we may feel like we're floating out in the ocean or the cosmic soup. And what we want, when we want to go forward and we want to put something out there and we want to get it done, it may be delayed or caused for it saying, hold on, slow down. Maybe what you're thinking or dreaming or putting out there is not quite in alignment, and you having to slow down will help you further down the line to not get into more trouble because it's correction on the course. So just pay attention for this. The shadow period ends on April 16th, and then on April 16th, Mercury will continue out of the sign of Pisces and begin into Aries. And that will be a big movement forward and a lot of clarity with communication, with thought, with technology, with what we've been trying to accomplish since maybe back to mid-February. So this Mercury retrograde is going to greatly influence the rest of the month and also this new moon. So to bring it to the new moon energy, which I started with on this report, it will be again on Friday, April 5th, and the moon will be in the sign of Aries. Now typically Aries There's a couple ways that you can, well, there's more than a couple ways, but a couple traditional ways that this archetype is explored. Aries is the god of war in the Roman and Greek mythology, and Aries is the warrior that goes out there. It's what we put out into the world, the energy of Aries. And it's whether you're a man or a woman or a child or an elder or a transgender person, we all have Aries energy somewhere within us. We all put things out into the world. We all take action somehow, and we all have desires, and we all want to grow and expand and begin a new journey at some point in our life. Now, one of the best ways to understand an energy in astrology is to look to Mother Nature. If we look out to nature right now, the sun is in Aries. Spring, which spring equinox started again on March 20th, is when the sun comes into Aries. Aries energy is rebirth. It's renewal. It's when Persephone comes out of the underworld in the Greek mythology after the dark season that was winter and fall. It's when the little buds on the trees grow the little fur on them and then sprout open in a golden leaf that comes forth. It's the flowers and the daffodils and the hyacinths that are now starting to come up out of the earth. It's the tiny green leaves that are coming off to the grass and the shoots of the plants that are arising. It's a newborn baby. It's a baby lamb. Aries is often associated with the ram, with the horns, the man, the masculine, the masculine one of that. But it's also associated with the lamb and the baby lamb. The feminine version of it. It's new, it's soft, it's coming into the world, it's exploring. So Aries energy doesn't always have to be aggressive, and it doesn't always have to be warlike, but it is this new curiosity, a new cycle, a new desire, a new beginning. And spring is very sweet, and it's very opening, and the days are getting longer and sunlight's coming in. It can be optimistic. However, another side of Aries is to think before you look. Act and then check to see what the action did. And so some major energy that is maybe slowing down this springtime Aries beginning new baby, warrior going out on a new journey, or someone taking a step to go forth on this new exploration, is that the new moon and the sun, which are in Aries, are squaring, coming into a dynamic with the planet Saturn. Saturn is in the sign of Capricorn, and Capricorn in both Saturn is at home in the sign of Capricorn. It's in its home sign for 2.5 years now. And Saturn is the energy that connects to laws and rules and boundaries, and it has to do with the elder wisdom. Ultimately, Saturn's goal in the spiritual realm is to make sure that things are correct and on the right path and being done for the highest good of all, and making sure that when something's begun, like a new journey or that Aries energy that says, let's act and go, that if you're about to act and go and cross the street at the wrong time and get run over by a bus, Saturn says, stop. But we don't always know why Saturn's saying stop. I was discussing this with Katrina, and she was giving the example of this new moon and sun in Aries and the Saturn square. It's much like you are a little child just learning to ride your bike. You've got your little helmet on, and you're on your little suburban street there, and you're feeling pretty good because you've now figured out how to pedal and keep your balance, and you want to go have an adventure and take off. And you think you know a lot of things now because you do. You've learned how to ride your bike, you've got balance, you no longer have your parents pushing behind you, and so you want to go ride to the end of the corner of the block and then maybe continue across that main street and keep going on your own. But your parents say, no, hold on. You can have a little bit of freedom, and you're welcome to go down the block, but you don't have permission to cross the big street. And the little Aries energy is like, nah, but I want to cross the big street. I'm a big person now. But the little person who's saying that doesn't have the wherewithal to properly look both ways on the street, doesn't know how to read the signs that say walk or don't walk. Maybe once they get so excited about their journey, they'll forget anything they do know about crossing the street, and then they're in jeopardy of getting run over by the bus. And so Saturn, while it seems like the parent sometimes saying, you can't go out and you can't do that, you can't go forward, more think of it as a loving parent or a Mr. Rogers type person who is saying, you don't quite have full independence yet. Now, it's hard to rationalize with Aries energies because Aries is a newborn or a child, and it's hard to rationalize with a 5-year-old about independence. But that's what the energy can be right now. And Saturn is putting a delay on your plans and slowing you down, or putting something obstacle in your way at this new moon from your desires, your dreams, what you've been putting out there for the past couple of months. That Pisces, Neptune, Mercury energy of, I see this vision, and Saturn says, slow down. This vision may be good, and the vision may be correct, but everything's not quite in alignment, or the timing's not right yet, or going forward with these people is not quite the right group of people, and so you may experience a delay. The other part of that square between the new moon and the sun and Saturn is just a few days later, as the sun, I'm using my elbow here, and the moon continue to move forward through the zodiac, they're going to then square the moon's south node, which is right next to Saturn, and then square Pluto. The south node has to do with the past. And so when the moon a few hours later squares the past, and the sun a few days later squares that south node, it's illuminating or putting energy on, have we resolved issues from the past that are still creating fear, still creating unbalanced desires, still creating internal trauma or drama, and still creating unbalances in our lives? If the answer is no, we haven't come to resolve with this, and this could be both times from your childhood, from your early adulthood, from past lives, but it's whatever is unbalanced around Capricorn and authority. So the South Node is in the sign of Capricorn right next to Saturn, and it's exploring issues of how we relate to society, how we appropriate ideas and concepts from society that may no longer be serving us. One of those is that oppressive patriarchal energy of we all need to feed the machine, we all need to feed the lust and the desires and the greed of the corporations and the government and the war machine that's out there, and we all need to at least be working 9 to 5 and turning over our tax money to the government and not questioning policies about how we treat women and water and border walls and immigrants and other people, and just toe the line and go forward because the big daddy said so. And this is a big thing. It's an individual and it's a societal thing. The reason it spreads into a bigger societal thing because right next to the South Node is Pluto. And Pluto is a big energy. Even though it's been demoted a number of years ago, not as a planet by NASA, it doesn't diminish the frequency of the energy coming out of Pluto. Pluto also, on a side note, rules atomic energy. And just to put that into perspective, atoms, very small and very subtle, but their energy inside of an atom, if it's opened up and split, is not subtle and small. We know this from the atomic bomb, or for using atomic energy to power our electricity and power plants or atomic power plants. And so Pluto's size has nothing to do with the amount of energy held in it. And Pluto is the planet that has to both do for an individual, you, with your soul, the soul energy, and the soul energy is much more powerful than the seen physical ego here. The soul that is the energy behind your incarnation, why you came in here, why you manifested this body, why you manifested at this time in history on this planet with this country and this part of your life with these parents, has to do with Pluto and with the soul. On a larger evolutionary perspective, Pluto has to do with the grand themes of society and government and the way the structures are held together. And Pluto is not seeking to maintain that. Pluto is seeking to transform it. It's death. It's the cycle of going into the underworld, and it is an unstoppable force of transformation. It's not always the way that the ego wants to transform, because Pluto, whether the ego or the society, whether the individual or the collective are willing to go with the direction of evolution, it's going to make it happen anyway. There are 3 ways, at least in this type of astrology, that the evolutionary force comes in. One is if you have been in alignment and you've been going on the path, or the good path, red road, as they say in the Native American world, or the Sakbe in the Mayan world, the white path of righteousness or rightness or alignment with the frequencies of spirit, that these transformative energies will just unfold like a flower, like a blossoming, a blooming. The second way is if you've done a little bit of the work, you're on the path, but on the other half, you're not so much. And then things will come in that will initiate change, And these can either be intense stagnation, meaning we can't take it anymore. The process has been so stagnant that we're forced into action out of psychological distress and out of being so upset with our situation. The other way is if we haven't been doing any of the work and we're getting really far off the path, that Pluto brings in the energy of an instantaneous lightning bolt or something that is undeniable to the path to end the process. And that one can be very painful. Not necessarily saying that's what's going to happen, but this new moon and the sun will both be scoring that Pluto energy and be putting light on where we need this deep transformation, where the soul is yearning to come forth to be in right way. What all of our souls are seeking on this planet, and I believe ultimately it is love. This new moon is the first new moon of the cycle of spring. It's a new beginning, a resurrection. If we take the mythologies of winter, of coming out of the underworld, we're bringing back something to this planet now. And we're looking to how we can bring back love. On a final note, this little lineup of the sun and moon squaring Saturn and the South Node and then Pluto is a precursor to these big energies that are about to play out in the year 2020, next year. January 11th of 2020, the planet Saturn and Pluto will come into a conjunction. Now this happens once about every 33 to 35 years. However, the planet Saturn with Pluto with the South Node, and over here by that time in 2020 Jupiter will be in this little lineup, hasn't happened for several thousands of years. That Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node have all been in the sign of Capricorn, and they're all going to make this cosmic alignment. This big alignment, many people are looking towards it as a significant shift in what's going on our planet. Now, it may not be the day of January 11th, and it may not be a week before or after, but we can feel, I can feel right now, there's significant tensions playing out in our planet as we're in the pre-shadow. We talked about the pre-shadow for Mercury. The pre-shadow of this event happening in January 2020 is happening now. And it has to do with society, with government, with the patriarchy, with the rules and laws that have been placed on this planet, on all the peoples. And it has to do with death and transformation and rebirth. And it also has to do with past, the South Node, past lives, past incarnations like Atlantis and other societies that raised to great enlightenment and then misused the powers and then had a great fall. The United States and other countries on this planet, at least in my interpretation, are on this trajectory. We have accumulated great masses of wealth and of intellectual knowledge, but we have greatly atrophied and lost our knowledge of the heart, the path of the heart, the intuition of the heart, the wisdom of the heart. And I want to read a Fred Rogers quote. Katrina gave me this book for our engagement anniversary, and it's just little quips and wisdom by Fred Rogers, who I think is one of the greater teachers of our 20th and early 21st century of the heart, of emotional wisdom, and how to access that and how to bring it back as something. And Fred Rogers says, we need to help people to discover the true meaning of love. Love is generally confused with dependence. Those of us who have grown in love, in true love, know that we can love only in proportion to our capacity for independence. I'll read that one more time. We need to help people to discover the true meaning of love. Love is generally confused with dependence. Those of us who have grown in true love know that we can love only in proportion of our capacity for independence. To sum up that Fred Rogers quote with our astrology right now, we have this Aries desire to start a new cycle, to become independent, and to maybe use that Mercury, Neptune, Pisces energies to imagine our new future. However, before we get there, that Saturn elder energy is saying we're not quite independent yet. We're still dependent on some of our old desires, our old weaknesses, our old patterns, our old consumptions, our old ways of doing things. And even though we have this new desire sparking, we're being told to slow down for a bit and take a seat and make sure that we're doing this the right way. We don't want to follow that same road of Atlantis, of coming to a point and falling off the cliff. We don't want to initiate a new journey and not properly prepare for it, not taking the proper shoes, not anticipating that the distance that we're going to travel is 10 times longer than we think. That Aries energy just says, act, go, which is good, but we also need that Saturn energy of saying, hold on, make sure this is in alignment. And that Pluto energy that says, check in with your soul and make sure that what you're doing is in alignment with Source. Make sure your soul and that Aries energy is on the good path, red road. Okay, yogis, thank you for listening to our astrology report. The full moon will be coming to you on April 19th with Katrina, and we look forward to seeing you. If you're interested in more astrology videos, we have an additional astrology membership, and at least once a month we put out long-form videos talking about things like Black Moon Lilith, about Chiron, about the different house systems, about the cycles of the planets in the outer realm, like Pluto taking its 250-year trip around the sun, and the generations, and how to read your own chart. You get the idea. You can go to Karma Yoga Center's webpage and check that membership out. Talk to you soon. Namaste.